2 weeks before your exam. The checklist. Hi, you're with Scott. It's midnight. It's always midnight. This is your right ear and your left ear because it's just a little mono mic. This is Mental Health Monday. I'm going to endeavour to speak in relaxed, calm tones so that this can be recorded and uploaded to True Binaural and ASMR. This is my Twitch stream, currently titled Ganji Kid, my gamer handle. And we're doing Mental Health Monday live every Monday, 8 o'clock on stream, somewhere we can explore ideas and hopefully offer some solace. Trying to do this in a calm way for True Binaural fans. Do you want these videos on True Binaural? Is it okay for me to bring you these Mental Health Monday support videos on the platform of my ASMR channel? Or would you prefer that I put them on my battery exhausted channel, the other channel? Do you think they don't belong on True Binaural? Please leave a comment and let me know. Yeah, I've asked it, I've said it, it's been done. Previously we talked about the worry tree, about worry time, and about the cognitive triangle. That's in previous episodes. And I'm not going to do too much going over those previous episodes today. So we've done the worry tree before. We'll do our catch up next week on more stuff. But I wanted today to do a special edition because I had a comment on my exam stress video on YouTube. Max is approaching their finals and they're stressed. So I thought we'd devote today to exam stress as a follow-up to the exam stress video that I produced. The first one was an ASMR video, just whispering, saying nice things. But this will provide some real actionable things that you can do to ease your exam stress in the 2 weeks before your exam. We're going to start today just briefly looking at stress, just talking about it as a concept, and then we'll push on to talking about exam stress specifically and mindfulness. So let's start with stress in general. I am going to be reading from this excellent website from the American Institute for Cognitive Therapy. There are lots and lots of websites offering lots and lots of mindfulness. There's lots of help out there. There are also people who are trying to charge you for that help, whether it be because they're offering a really important and valuable service, or whether they're just trying to get your money. But here we're just going to look at things that are available for free, that are really that things you can trust. Okay. So what is stress? Stress is a natural physiological response. It's natural. I am going to read this and talk about it as we go. It involves a complex interaction between our mind, body, and environment. Stress is not inherently bad. In fact, we need a certain optimal level of stress to remain alert and perform well. Ideally, stress prepares us to take action by activating our sympathetic nervous system and improving mental focus. If we're too relaxed, not stressed enough, then we're likely to be less motivated and less primed for physical action, thus inhibiting our ability to respond well to a situation. If we're under too much stress, we also suffer as our body stiffens and we lose our mental edge. So that's important to think about, isn't it? If we're talking exams, you want to be able to perform well. You don't want to lose your mental edge. But the stress that you're feeling is natural and will help you to perform well if harnessed and handled in the right way. When is stress a problem? The problem occurs when we experience too much stress. We overtax the natural resources of our body, both physically and mentally. Chronic, high levels of stress have been associated with many serious physical and psychological difficulties. And I don't want to stress you more or worry you more by listing them, but things like insomnia, I believe, we'll recognise, hypertension, depression. In a recent survey, American Psychological Association 2007, nearly half of all Americans believe their level of stress has increased over the past 5 years. Okay. Going to move down a bit now. Warning signs of too much stress. And if you're in the 2 weeks before your exam, it's pulling this round to the context of exam stress today. If you're in those 2 weeks before your exam, or the days before, you might feel some of these physical symptoms building up. And it's important to note how you feel physically and mentally, and to do the right thing for yourself at the right time. As we've seen, it can be damaging to your performance if you're overstressed. So it is almost as important, just as important as the revision and the study, is to keep yourself mentally and physically in peak performance, ready to do your best. Don't burn yourself out. Warning signs of too much stress can include the following. There's physical, behavioural and psychological. Physical, muscle tension, headaches, exhaustion, fatigue, weight changes, sleep disturbances, teeth grinding, frequent bouts of illness, stomach aches, hypertension, sweating or trembling hands, sexual dysfunction, diarrhea or constipation, back pain, restlessness and indigestion. That's a whole host of physical symptoms. So you could be feeling a bit under the weather, or as extreme as sweating and grinding your teeth. Yeah, there's a wide range of physical symptoms there, and you might recognise some of them if you're feeling stressed. Behavioural is interesting because we looked at the cognitive triangle last week as well. Let's get a cheeky little image of the cognitive triangle. Fade back. Oh, hello chat. Hello, hang on. Chat's popping off. Got too many windows open and I'm reading things. I used to bite the pen. Yeah, that's a really good one, isn't it? Something you don't really not notice that you're doing, but you're chewing away on the pen. Yeah, we've got this cognitive triangle, and it talks about how your thoughts influence your behaviour, and your behaviour influences your feelings, and your feelings influence your thoughts and your behaviour, and they all go around influencing each other. We talked about that last week. And so it's interesting when we talk about how behavioural stress can change your behaviour. And so that behaviour change can affect this cognitive triangle and affect how you feel and how you think. So stress can be damaging in a sort of knock-on effect kind of way. Behavioural changes, you might hurry more, increased accidents, decreased productivity, and that's not what we want with exams coming up. It says increased consumption of alcohol or drugs. Some people can lean on the drink, I suppose, but maybe not if you're doing exams. Maybe you're not. It's probably not a good idea to use loads of drugs before your exams. Unhealthy eating patterns. We can all do that, can't we? We all munch on a bit of stuff while we're trying to revise. Think it's easier than having a proper meal, but maybe that's not such a good idea. Isolation, cigarette smoking, procrastination, conflicts with others, and restricted breathing. Behavioural, yeah. So behavioural is kicking up its own problems, isn't it? Stress is causing people to behave in ways that's causing them more problems. And then that leads on to the psychological issues, the irritability, decreased emotional control, being worried, feeling overwhelmed, especially leading up to an exam. Being frustrated, you certainly don't want to be frustrated in your exams. Poor concentration, forgetfulness, thoughts of running away, not wanting to face the problems, loss of sense of humour, difficulty making decisions, and that's going to be tough during an exam situation, crying, intense bouts of anger. So there's lots of these knock-on effects with stress, and none of them are good. None of them are good. If we move down, we're looking at events and circumstances that are naturally stressful, and they give some examples. And today, of course, we're talking about exams, so that's a pretty straightforward example there, isn't it? but the degree of stress that we experience varies from person to person. So that's interesting, isn't it? Typically due to subjective factors. So other people might not feel as stressed about their exams. Other people might feel more stressed. But all you've got to do is concentrate on your performance and how to get the best out of yourself. So reducing stress is going to be good for you. Our thoughts about our experiences play a significant role in determining if something is stressful or not, and the amount of stress we can experience. So going over things in your mind might increase your stress. Accepting that it's happening and considering other thoughts might decrease your stress. And at times we might need to be particularly aware of stress-producing thoughts and how to keep them in check. And that's what we're doing here, isn't it? That's what we're going to talk about today. Interactive factors. Our behaviour helps shape our experience. So your behaviour might make you more stressed if you're making bad decisions and performing badly because of stress. Physical exercise and positive routine, diet, these things are all going to help decrease your stress. And they're things that you can interact with, things that you can physically take control over. So that's cool, that's interesting. There's just a little bit more down here about the physical processes and misconceptions. One common misconception involves looking for a single cause. And it uses this example of water poured into a glass being accumulated over time. And usually we look at what immediately it caused our stress, when actually we could have been building up a level of stress over time. And it might be that the final thing that pushes you over the edge might seem small, but it's been this build-up of stress over a period of time. That's a misconception, is that people think it has to be one thing that causes something, but it can be a build-up. And of course, leading up to exams, there's been an increase in... I'm looking for my drink. There's been an increase in pressure. There's been this thing on the horizon that you've been talking about and working towards. So the stress has been building over time. And 2 weeks before the exam, you're probably at the peak of that. But we're going to do something today to help deal with it. What's the underlying physiological process? Activation of the sympathetic nervous system, release of hormones from the adrenal gland, increased heart rate, muscle tension, priming our body to fight or flee. Over long term, the chronic and sustained activation of these stress responses can have damaging effects on the body. So I don't want to stress you, but stress is stressing. I don't want to stress you, but stress is killing you. So we're gonna need to relax, and we're going to find out ways to do that today. Some relaxation techniques include breathing, diaphragmatic. They use these long words because they know I'm here to read them. Diaphragmatic breathing in your tummy, breathing. Progressive muscle relaxation, meditation, relaxation, mindfulness practices, which we're going to talk about today, and other stuff. But not drinking. That's not listed on there as a relaxation technique. Can medication help? I'd leave that to the doctor. I'm not going to advise, and I'm not going to take a website's advice on your personal circumstance and whether medication could help. Cognitive behavioural therapy helps. There's a lot of information here about it. Getting a bit complicated, but let's just say cognitive behavioural therapy helps. And of course they're going to say that because they are the American Institute for Cognitive Behavioural Therapy. But they're good, and they've given us some nice information. What I'd like to do quickly is just have a look at this, which is a paper from the Journal of Behavioural Medicine, and it's talking about effects of mindfulness-based stress reduction. Effects of mindfulness-based stress reduction on medical and pre-medical students. So they've got people who are in a stress situation. They're medical students, and they're having a little look. This is in 1998, about how mindfulness can affect stress. The study examined the short-term effects of an 8-week meditation-based stress reduction intervention on the medical students. Findings indicate that participation in the intervention can reduce self-reported state and trait anxiety. It can reduce reports of overall psychological distress, including depression, increase scores on empathy levels, and increase scores on a measure of spiritual experiences assessed at termination of intervention. That is a bit complicated at the end there. Feeling spiritual at the end of it. There was a little, study done to say that mindfulness does positively affect the medical students. And then there were further studies, and these are really important to note. These are important to also look at. A lot of words here, and I'll just really briefly sum this up. But if you want to find out yourself, it is available on the internet. Scientific reports, nature.com, open access, 2020, immune dysregulation among students exposed to exam stress and its mitigation by mindfulness training, findings from an exploratory randomized trial. So they went on to ask, can this reduction in stress actually positively affect your immune system and ergo help to combat things like cancer? And they found no, that your mindfulness training won't cure your cancer. So it's good to know. It's good to know that we've checked how far things can work and what they can do. But what mindfulness will do is it will reduce your anxiety and stress levels and increase your performance in your exam. We've got mindfulness and some exercises. But before we do that, I'm just going to leave the worry tree up for a minute, because I'm going to go over I wrote this little video thing, did a little bit of research, and wrote this little video thing. So I'm just going to quickly go through 2 weeks before your exam. The checklist. Number 1, 2 weeks before your exam. Follow a healthy routine. If you haven't already, establish a decent sleep pattern, regular meal times, exercise, a healthy routine. I'm not the king of healthy routine by any means, so I'm not here. I keep laughing at myself today because I'm saying things that sound like good advice that I should take, because I have terrible sleep trouble and healthy routine. I do walk the dog regularly, but healthy routine. So establish a healthy routine. Number 2, introduce the mindfulness practice, which is what we're going to finish on, what we're going to talk about right at the end, just as the battery runs out. And our battery is still running, so we're still running. Number 3, and this is interesting now, about study, right? Specifically about study. With study, focus on what you already know when you sit down to study. Before you start, think about things you do know, and then move on to the things that you're not so sure of. You should be able to add a few things from the not so sure list to the things you know at the end of the session. That's basic study, isn't it? But what's important about this is that you're not spending the last 2 weeks before your exam trying to learn brand new concepts that you find really difficult. It's okay to go over things that you're finding more difficult, and it's okay to have breakthroughs in the last 2 weeks. But if you're really struggling with some concepts, maybe they don't come up on the exam. Maybe they're not the be-all and end-all of your final performance, and maybe worrying about them, stressing about them, not fixing this issue of difficulty understanding them is not the best thing to do in the last 2 weeks before the exam. Maybe it's better to focus on the things you do know, solidify that knowledge, and also approach these things that you're finding more difficult, but not to let them become too big in your mind. Number 2, time tests. This is a tip I got from somebody else. Practice writing your answers. Practice writing answers to questions. I'm sure that you will have, as you approach your final exams, been given some of these practice question and answers. Do them with a little clock. Have a little time test session. It's good practice. for the physical writing process that you're going to be performing in a few days. It's okay to study a little more. It's natural to want to do a little bit more, but remember to take breaks. Remember your anxiety is pushing you to perform well, but not to let it get out of control and drive you into 4 a.m. sessions that ruin your next day. So it's okay to want to do a little more in these last 2 weeks, but remember to take breaks. Number 4, stop worrying about the things that you have big problems with. I don't know if this is number 4 now because I got sidetracked, so it might be number whatever. Let's fade back to chat and worry tree. Stop worrying. You see, here it comes. Stop worrying about that one thing you have big problems with. It's possible it might not come up in the exam, and with 2 weeks to go, you're better off reviewing and solidifying your knowledge rather than trying to learn something brand new. We did say this already, but now we're doing it with the worry tree. So it's okay to have a go at things, to try and work at things you feel may have value, but consider this value balance of not letting all of your last 2 weeks be consumed with something that you find difficult, that you still find difficult at the end, that might not even be the deciding factor. And how to do that? Worry tree. Worry tree. Keep calm, calm. Notice the worry. What am I worrying about? I'm worrying about this one particular aspect of learning, of the subject, this one particular thing, and I don't know if it's going to come up in the exam, but I'm not really sure I'm really confident about it, and I really struggle to get this thing into my head, to remember these dates, or to whatever this thing is. I really struggle with this one thing. Is it something you can do something about? Well, yes, I can study it, but you've been studying it for the last 2 years. You've done all you can over the, you're coming to the final 2 weeks now. Is it something you can fix in 2 weeks, in a week? You've got your study sessions, you're going to be looking at it. Okay, you've got that plan, so action it. When, how? Later, now, when you do your study sessions, I will be looking at it for half an hour at the end of each one. But if it's not something you can do, if I can't learn all the dates of all the kings and queens, or the whatever this thing is that it keeps evading you, if it's something that I'm not very good at and it's not my strength, then okay, I'm going to let it go and change the focus. I'm going to focus on my strengths and the things I can do really well at, and I'm going to go in there confident, and I'm going to write 80% excellent answers, and this 20% where I'm not so sure, I might struggle a bit, but that other 80% is going to be solid. That's the way to look at this. So let the worry go and change your focus. That's the worry tree. How to write off studying something that you really struggle with when you've only got 2 weeks to go is to follow the worry tree, say it's a hypothetical situation, and let it go. Number 6, or 5, or 4, or 8, depending on how this list is going. Get your kit together. Don't laugh and joke loudly because it's supposed to be calm and relaxing, this one. Get your kit together. Have your pens and your pencils and your calculator and whatever it is. Have it all prepared. Have it prepared the week early, 2 weeks. We're talking about 2 weeks before your exam. Have it be prepared now. Do it tomorrow. It means that you can feel confident all that stuff's there. You don't have to do it the night before. You might check it a few times, but do it now. Have it done. And this goes for number 6 as well, is your place of exam. Be prepared for that. If you need to know how to get there, if you need to know where it's going to be, do that preparation. Do it tomorrow. Don't leave it to the last day before you've got to do it and add to your burden of stress. Have it done, and then you can look at that and say, I'm confident about that. I've ticked that one off the list, and that will add to your confidence. Pretty cool, huh? You've done all the work in the last few years, hopefully. So this time it's about solidifying knowledge and focusing on what you know. Spend your time building your confidence and your physical and mental health. And that's positive routine, it's exercise, it's eating well, it's study time, it's taking breaks, everything in a nice balance, I did want to say a word here to those who don't feel they've done the work. And I've been in that boat myself. I remember sitting an exam. Should we do big face? Let's get the old big face out. I remember sitting in exam where I literally hadn't been to any of the lessons, I hadn't done any of the revision, I hadn't done any of the study. It was a completely novel experience for me. I'd never done this before. The subject was general studies, and it was not taken very seriously by many people. And it's general studies, isn't it? So I sat down to generally say something about some stuff. I absolutely aced that exam. No, I didn't ace that exam. I failed it. But I did go in knowing I was going to fail it. I went in looking for about 40% base rate pass. I don't think I even got that. But this is my advice. If you haven't done the work and it's 2 weeks before the exam, you might be one of these amazing people who can fit 2 years worth of cramming into 2 weeks and churn it all out in the exam in some superhuman feat of memory and repetition. Or you might be like the rest of us, normal people, who are going to struggle with that task. But that's okay. That's okay. It's okay if this time that you step up to the plate, you struggle. This is specifically for those who feel they haven't even, done the work, who know that they're not prepared, not just worried about it, but really know they haven't done it. It's okay. You can take another exam in the future. You have to go through this process, and it might be good to have a look at a few books before you go in. It might be good to get a positive routine going in these last 2 weeks. But it won't be good to stress yourself about it. It won't be good to worry and worry and worry. That will just mean that you feel bad for the next 2 weeks, and then will feel bad when you do the exam. It's much better to try and do the little that you can, a little bit of reading, a couple of hours study in the evenings, to try and learn something, and go in there and take it as an experience. But don't set yourself up with unrealistic expectations of being able to cram 2 years worth of work into 2 weeks. And don't beat yourself up over it, because what's done is done. The exam's in 2 weeks. It's about preparing the best you can. And if the best you can is virtually nothing, as it was in my case, then that is the best you can. And I chose to do other things. So I failed that exam. But I don't beat myself up about it all these years later, nor should you at the time. I'm sure other people are going to have a few stern words, but it's about learning, isn't it? And moving on. Even if you didn't do the learning in the last 2 years, you certainly learned something in the next 2 weeks, I'm sure. And it's better to accept the consequences and look to the next steps. So, otherwise, this week is about smart preparation, eating well, sleeping in a decent routine, recognising how valuable that is, studying light, doing some practice, having your kit ready, and looking forward to it. Because this is an opportunity, after all, an opportunity to excel. A lot of people feel worried about the chance of failure, but you've done the work. You've got a decent basic knowledge going in. You're polishing things now. You're worried about this or feeling confident about that. It's better to feel confident about the things. It's better to push yourself into a positive place in the next 2 weeks and be physically and mentally in a good place for the exam. And you know what? If the night before you don't feel that sleepy or you have a bad tummy, take that in your stride too. Don't set yourself up with these unrealistic expectations of walking in like superhuman. You're going to just sit down and flash 100%. Going to go out and pump a million irons afterwards. You don't have to do that. You just have to do your best. And you've done a lot of hard work, and it's an opportunity to show some of it. And at the end, it's all going to be all right. There's going to be some pats on the back and some relief. And it'll be worth it. we're going to finish now with mindfulness. This is Mind, the mental health. Mind, who are a wonderful charity that offer mental health support. It's based in the UK. Now you can see their logo there in the top left. Have a little look at that, because I'm going to fade again and get rid of it. Right, it's gone. You'll be able to access this online. Mindful eating. I like this one. This one's actually quite good, because a lot of the time you eat things because you're having your lunch and it's quick and whatever, a sandwich, choff, 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 croff, croff. But actually paying attention to the taste, the sight, the textures of what you eat can be really, really, really enjoyable. Yeah, when drinking a cup of tea or coffee, you could focus on how hot the liquid feels on your tongue, how sweet it tastes or bitter, and watch the steam it gives off. These are experiences that you can linger over, help you bring you into the now. Mindful eating. Mindful moving, walking or running. Notice the feeling of your body moving. So again, it's about tuning in to the reality of what's happening. You might notice the breeze against your skin, the feeling of your feet or hands against different textures on the ground. Body scan. This is where you move your attention slowly through different parts of the body, starting from the top of your head, moving all the way down to your toes. You could focus on feelings of warmth, tension, tingling, or relaxation of different parts of your body. I haven't heard of that one actually before, body scan. Thinking about all the different parts of your body that could work. We could do that. And mindful colouring and drawing. Focus on the colours and the sensation of your pencil against the paper, rather than trying to draw something in particular. So that's quite clever, isn't it? That's quite interesting. Mindful meditation at the bottom. Literally sitting down thinking nothing. I'm going to introduce my favourite as well, which my favourite is the colour choosing, colour spotting. So I've got the big face picture there, and I can see that in the background it looks like it might be a white background, but actually it's not a white background. It's sort of cream, isn't it? It's off-white, and there's books there at the top, and there's a red book, there's a little light blue, and then I start to say to myself, how many other red things can I see? I can see the edges of some other red books. My face is relatively red, I suppose, isn't it? There's some yellow light being cast on it. I love colour and building up that. And once you've moved on from the reds now, and you into yellows, and there's a variety of yellow. Yeah, so there's another exercise. I do that. I don't know if it is as mindful as the others, really, because the others are all about physical sensations and tuning into the now, whereas mine allows me to drift off sometimes, but I do enjoy it. So we've done Mental Health Monday. Thank you very much, and you be good, my little puckos.